And welcome back to the European LCS. We're about to bring you game 3 between Giants and Misfits. It is the deciding match, and as we mentioned at the beginning of the series, Misfits get side choice for games 1 and 3. They have elected blue side for the deciding game, unlike Giants in game 2. Are you surprised to hear this? Not really. We thought this was the preferred one. What do you think?
This was the interpretation from what the discussions that we were having this morning as a caster team, where it does seem that blue side seems to be the preferred from players, especially based on what we saw from yesterday, because it doesn't allow you to have a little bit more freedom, more control over the pick and ban phase, especially during the first half, where we are seeing in the second half, like, hey, apparently you don't even need to ban all 5 champions if you're on the blue side. You know, you leave more things open.
Hey, these guys have played League for so many years with just 3 bans.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, 4 is a bonus still.
The worst one is where you think you're picking and then you accidentally ban the champion that you want. That's the worst.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah.
It sucks. But yeah, I mean, Misfits, they unfortunately ran out of time during the phase 2 ban. Which actually, in my opinion, I think may have let the Rise through. I think that would have likely been the ban, but either way, it didn't really have much of an impact.
Nope.
Knight, although he had a good game, the map sort of fell apart around him.
Good game, he went 2 and 5. His early game was promising, and especially during the laning phase.
Right? It's like, hey, he was okay, but when your top and your bottom lane fall apart and then you lose towers and then you get jumped on, you know, behind your own tower, it's difficult to pull the game back from behind, but then that's because Misfits played very well, had an even stronger showing in the first 15 to 20 minutes.
And you speak about the bot lane falling behind. I feel like this is a trend that we're starting to see throughout this series, because game 1, that first tower went down. That was the first tower to drop, and exactly the same thing happened in the second game. And I feel like this is a problem that needs to be rectified coming into the final.
And this is for Hikyu and Hassan, of course. It is them who have struggled to deal with the pressure from Hansama and Ignar. It's not only been a 2-on-2, because Kakao has shown a couple of ganks and there's been a few roams, but Giants don't have an answer. It feels like they're not reading the map, maybe, as effectively as they could be. And we jump into picks and bans for game 3 here on day 2. Zyra, Rengar, once again, the same bans. Ilaoi was the second ban from Misfits in the previous match.
I feel like you can keep this strategy going for you if you're Misfits, because they identified that Flaxish seems to be a split push player. That seems to be his style, especially when you have a Kennen who typically is considered to be a strong teamfight player, move into that AD build, which we have seen so far in season, patch 7.1 more specifically, but I think that I'd like to see a little bit more from Flaxish. Maybe put him on a tank, maybe put him on something that he's more team-orientated, and allow your players like Knight and Hikyu, who we haven't really seen much of, to shine.
All right, so to finish out the bans, Malzahar Camille from Giants, Ilaoi LeBlanc from Misfits. Katarina is available once more. Went through pick and ban untouched previously. Where are some of the other priorities here? I mean, first pick Syndra maybe? Or in this case, it will be Rek'Sai.
Interesting. So Misfits prioritizing the tanky front line this time. Wouldn't surprise me if Alphari then looks to go for something like aggressive, like the Rumble, like we saw him go for earlier on. There are a lot of top lane carries left available, but if you are on the side of Giants, I think right now you need to prioritize your bottom lane. Something like the Ashe, the Varus, something that has so far throughout the series had a very successful demonstration at the bottom.
Well, there's the hover on the Ashe so far, but the Rek'Sai, you know, it's a pivot away. It denies that from Memento. It also means Kakao's not going to be on that Kha'Zix, which he's actually been pretty good on. Has had the impact, has found the kills that he needed to. I'm not expecting that to be real, but what are you going to combo with this Varus in the side of Giants? You know, do you go for a support? Potentially open yourself to be counterpicked?
I feel like you just go for your jungler right now. You could go for something like a Hecarim, and just for context, the reason why he hovered that Shaco is because that is what he played during the Challenger qualifiers in that final game, which he ended up losing. So a bit of a throwback, but it looks like now we're just going to see a swap of junglers. So now we'll get to see if Memento can exert that early pressure, which he has been lacking throughout this series. And for Misfits, I feel like the best bet is to go for the Ashe. It seems to me that Hansama needs to be put on something where he's providing more utility for the team, because he hasn't been a very standout player for me so far. I feel like that a lot of the hype surrounding him coming in, right now we're not really seeing. He's not being that superstar carry, and a lot of his success is being set up by Ignar and by Kakao.
Yeah, that Jhin performance from game 1 left a few question marks. His Varus from game 2 significantly stronger, but a little more helped out. There's that utility pick in the Ashe. And now we need to look where Misfits round out pick phase 1.
So I imagine that they're thinking of something like a Braum or a Thresh for Ignar, but he doesn't want to pick it now because then the Karma would likely be the response. And Karma will make that life so difficult in the bottom lane that you're forcing Misfits to either pick either a top or a mid laner. And given that Alphari is likely to go on a carry, the best thing to do is go for something safe that Power of Evil can just dominate his lane on into most matchups, which knowing Knight may very well be a Ryze.
All right, Syndra locked in. Ryze is available. What else could you run into Syndra if Knight didn't want to go that route?
You could go Echo, something that we actually saw yesterday. Does very well because of his insane mobility. From the early Proto Belt Rush, it actually becomes very difficult for Syndra to land those skill shots, and you can dodge and move around, and you have a lot of versatility that come the later stages when you go into these side lanes, you become very difficult, and Misfits can't be able to deal with it.
All right, Echo's a possibility. We'll find out the answer to the question later because that Flex Nautilus has been locked in. We have seen it top lane in other regions, and we have seen it support by Hustlin earlier this series. Landed some very good dredge lines, used that Q, and was a little bit of a game changer. Rumble, target ban towards Alphari, and then Misfits begin their ban phase 2.
So you're already starting to see the targets towards Alphari. We know you want to try and play that carry top lane. You had a good Rumble, so we're going to take that away from you. Bear in mind that we also saw a couple other carries banned away previously, like we did see the Jace ban fairly consistently coming out from Misfits, as well as a Fiora in game 1. And I like the fact that, oh, actually, that's a really smart ban. This is another thing that we saw in game 1, which could go into the Syndra the Corki, the safety of it. Really smart to take that away to make things difficult for Giants.
Yeah, I mean, Giants have 3 out of the 5 champions that they won the game with to open the series. So
2 of them.
2 of them, you're 100% correct. Rek'Sai's over on Alphari's side. So 2 of them still got that poke, a lot of physical damage on Giants. They need some magic damage to follow it up. With Tahm Kench taken off the table, Karma's still up and available if Hustler wants to go that route again.
And I just want to expand a little bit more on this Tahm Kench because it's something we've been seeing over in the LCK a lot. A lot of supports have actually been picking the Tahm Kench into things like Zyra and Ashe and a lot of these utility AD carries because of how much it mitigates that engage potential. And I think that Ignar, he is the style of player that would like that melee sort of aggressive support.
And Vedius, you called it, Echo in the mid lane. So Knight has got some tools to deal with Power of Evil, and Giants have the opportunity to either counterpick top or potentially counterpick support as Misfits have to round out their team comp.
I actually wouldn't entirely be against a Braum right now. That is an alternative. Now, you actually mentioned this earlier on, Trevor, the Proto Belt Taric. Maybe, no, we definitely won't see that now.
We won't see Proto Belt unless they're super far ahead, but
Taric is a champion that we certainly have not seen for a while. Fits into this playstyle of Ignar, which is that melee frontline. The problem is, right now, you actually have a lot of tanky. You have a lot of sustain. I really don't want to see them out. I want to see Alphari on something more aggressive, but I guess he's just feeling a little bit afraid with the possible counterpicks that open for Giants.
And what are the possible counterpicks? If this Nautilus goes support and that's Mount, like, where do Giants go? What are you expecting?
Well, you could go for the cannon here again. Either both AD and AP work. I feel like the AD is a little bit better here because while the teamfight power of Misfits is definitely strong, it comes back to what we were talking about in game 1 where you exhaust, you cut half the damage. So interesting that Giants are actually shifting that priority. Now, we talked a little bit earlier on about the possibility of Karma going into a melee support because of how aggressive she can be. With Zyra and Mal's taken off the table, Karma's priority actually rises ever so slightly. So I do like this pick into the Taric, and it will give Giants much more pushing and a lot more aggression available to them in the early stages, which is something that we talked about that they needed more of.
It feels like Giants have got ever so slightly more damage, you know, with that Kha'Zix jungle, whereas Misfits have just got a higher amount of tankiness, Rek'Sai and Taric.
Very tanky, yeah.
Who's going to have the advantage early game in pushing power? It really feels like Varus and Karma are going to bully Hansama and Ignar.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be rough in the bottom lane. Top will be fairly even, and mid will go fairly even, or ever so slightly in the favor of Syndra early, but as the game progresses, you'll find out that it slowly starts to even out. The big thing you have to be careful is the roaming power of this Echo. Because he's going for the teleport, because of how mobile he is, he can be a big determining factor that can snowball the bottom lane for Giants.
So important to keep track of that, especially with the engaged power that Hansama can put down with that Ashe. Combine that with the global from Rek'Sai, you know, Misfits could set up tower dives, could set up fights.
That's very true.
And it's going to be up to Knight and to Flaxish to try and counter that, to try be in position to stop it. It's game 3. It's all on the line here. Remember, both of these teams have a lot of rookies on the stage. First-time LCS players, first-time professional players. And now we get to see who's going to pick it up. Who do you guys think will win? That is the question. Hashtag GIA win or hashtag MSF win. As we jump into game, it's Misfits versus Giants.
And I feel like we have to talk a little bit about the fact that I don't think Giants were expected to do this well. You know, they have come in with low expectations in the sense that Hustlin never really impressed last split. Hikyu is a bit of an unknown AD carry player. Flaxish, also an unknown sort of solo queue player that spent a long time around the amateur scene. And Memento, he was always on these weaker teams throughout his so far professional career. So on paper, Giants never really looked like that stand-up performing team. And so far, they've actually been doing a very good job.
So Vedius, I want to go back to this Memento point. Memento's a guy who has some LCS stage experience.
He has
a fair amount of EUCS experience. Now, this is a guy who has been around the top level in Europe for a while. How much stronger on paper is this variation of Giants to any of Memento's previous teams, do you think?
Personally, I feel that right now, Memento is on the strongest team that he has been on so far in his career. Largely because of the power of his mid laner. Previously, he was with Betsy, who was just incredibly inconsistent. He was either hard carrying or he wasn't turning up. You had Steelback in the bottom lane who was doing what he could, but at the same time, there just wasn't enough room for him to really shine. And I feel like that the roster was so all over the shop that at least with this roster on paper, it just seems to work towards a slightly better goal. The problem that we're seeing right now is that there's still work to do, right? They're still trying to figure out each other's playstyles.
We're seeing a lot of mistakes that need to be rectified from the first showing on stage here as Giants and Misfits once again starts out. This is the deciding game of the series. Keystones on your screen, a lot of tankiness.
That's a lot of courage on the side of Misfits.
Gonna expect these team fights. I mean, Misfits kind of want the team fights to go nice and long. Maybe it's the pessimist in me. Good stun coming out from Ignal. It's a bit of a trade.
Really like that trading pattern
trade,
too.
actually.
Yeah, because you get the shield from the stun, and then you can just walk up, and you know that you're going to mitigate a lot more of the damage than Hustlin's able to throw out. So he's able to come out away with that one. Really nice trading pattern now in the bottom lane, but still, you can see the push already going in the favor of Giants in the bottom lane.
Yeah, that's no surprise, really. If Flaxish wants to, he can push out as well, but Alfari and Flaxish, now they've got two big wet noodles to trade back and forth with until a fight comes out. And Vedius, I've got a tiny concern here. If Power of Evil is unable to blow somebody up with his ultimate, the only damage follow-up is Hans Summer. So, you know, yes, Memento, Hikyu, Huston are fairly squishy targets, but the damage roster does not run particularly deep on the side of Misfits. Is that a concern?
Well, it could very well be. We might have to hold off on that as we see a three-man gank in the mid lane.
All right, Tunnel can come over. Kakao follows the dash. Knight is knocked up, and First Blood picked up with the Thunderlords. Teleport comes down for Afari, trying to reply back. Flaxish drops the hammer down. They've traded back and forth. And it's not over yet. This is getting messy. Dazzle stun, gonna lock up Flaxish, but it's Giants that get 3 and double buffs on Flaxish.
That could not have been a worse start for Misfits. Not only do they give away 3 kills at the very start of the game, but Knight is just going to teleport back into the mid lane and pick up all of the farm that he was supposed to lose. The principle, the theory behind that play made so much sense, but the response from Giants was just far too good. Look at the execution.
How quickly does Flaxish teleport? The moment the threat, let's track that as well.
So you'll see now that Kha'Zix is already moving from behind. The moment they're underneath the turret, that's when the teleport comes through. And you also have the Karma coming in up the river as well. So Misfits have no route for escape. Giants have completely locked them down, and it is so easy to secure the rest of these kills.
After all the criticisms we were giving Giants, they read and react to that play exceptionally well.
Yes, they do.
Whether that was Flaxish maybe seeing it or, you know, just very heads-up play. Flaxish had left the top lane to start roaming before it started, and that allows 3 kills on the border. Giants and double buffs for their top laner.
This is actually like horrendously bad. Now, slight the slight bright side for Misfits is they've gotten a bit of a push because Karma roamed up to the top. But when you think of that, the broad spectrum of the game, Memento got himself an early kill and has 2 assists, so he's likely going to come back with. He could go for a very early aggressive itemization. Yeah, well, okay. Or he could just prioritize getting up his jungle item. Because we saw in game 1, Cacao go for the instant Tiamat to help with his wave clear. But instead, Memento saying, hey, I want a bit of extra goal income. I want a bit of early damage. But for the time being, I'm just going to focus on being able to provide that extra bit of utility from my smite. But on top of that, just like the fact that this Echo is able to still maintain a CS advantage after a 3-man dive is so big for Knight.
Yeah, very important, that teleport paying dividends as the game plays out. Memento gets pinged out. The ward obviously spotted him there in the Krugs. He's decided to leave that lane. Kills the Scryer's Blossom, gets some additional vision, and doesn't spot any other wards. So just going back to the clear game, it's a 500 gold advantage to Giants.
Now, this is where we really get to test the mental fortitude of Misfits. Because if this was a scrim, you would have said, GG, go next. Because that sort of an early deficit is so big that Misfits, like, this really should be, like, I don't want to call it this early, but this should be Misfits' game or Giants' game to lose. Simply because of the increment, like, it just means so much to the overall game. The advantage you give Memento in the early game, the fact that Knight is not losing to a Syndra.
But what does Memento have to do with the advantage, right? Because he's the guy that we're looking at. We're talking about, we've discussed his history, and, you know, game 1, he was non-existent for 30 minutes. Game 2, he had a few ganks. And now he's set up for success, right? So where should his attention be? Right now, it's waiting for Cacao. He's going to get some Void Spikes down. A little bit of damage, decides not to leap in. So what happens next?
So to answer your question, Memento doesn't actually have to focus anywhere. He doesn't have to gank a particular lane. He doesn't have to try and snowball anything. He just has to maintain control. And Giants just need to keep where they're at. Because the large part of this game was going to be decided by the Syndra versus Echo matchup. If Syndra could snowball or get an ever so slight lead, what she does is she pushes mid lane, looks to roam bot and build advantages there. But speaking of bot,
Ignar, where's the Dazzle? Support coming in from Memento and Giants behind. Soul Flare gets a little bit of a tag. He wants to hunt Summer and he backs away. Ignar, no summoner spells blown. And he manages to walk away, but loses so many hit points.
Yep. Takes a lot of harass, tries to be aggressive. He actually moves aggressively in the lane because Cacao was hanging around the bottom half of the map, potentially looking for a play. But it's Memento that initiates there first. So we are now seeing Memento play a little bit more towards the bottom half of the map. But just look at the vision line in the bottom half of the map. If we could see Giants' amount of vision on the map and we compare it to Misfits' actual vision on the map, you can see that Giants can just see so much more. And this is thanks to that early game play. And this is why it's on Misfits to try and force something. It's on Misfits to try and find an opportunity to claw their way back in.
And yeah, and not mess it up. I mean, look, they've closed the goal gap already. 15 CS advantage for Alphari's definitely going to help that out. Flaxish, in the one-on-one, has been outclassed by Alphari.
Oh,
we've seen all series long. But Flaxish has shown he can play the map, he can play the side lanes, and he claws back the deficit. There's 4 control wards in the Giants' inventory. I want to keep an eye on where they go down and what objectives they unlock. Because it is a Mountain Drake that is on the Rift. It's a lot juicier than those Cloud Drakes. And we'll see if it's worth fighting for. Phase dive backwards. Knight dashes to the minion as well. Dodges everything.
And this is the mobility that we were talking about during Champion Select. Echo, thanks to the E, just gives him a lot more versatility. He's already working towards that proto belt, which will just add to not only his burst, but his dive potential. And now we actually see Misfits being the aggressors. Thanks to that gank that happened in the mid, this has allowed Cacao and Power of Evil to move further into the top side of the jungle, get a bit of a deep ward. They also have a ward on the blue buff, so Misfits, even after the early deficit, are still looking to try and at least have some semblance of control over the map.
Yeah, regardless of the kills they gave up, their champions are still very powerful at this stage of the game, right? Syndra, Rek'Sai can do a lot. There's a teleport available for Alphari as well if any action were to break out. First backs, Memento's got that Caulfield's Hammer, BF Sword for Hikyu. Tanks doing their tanky thing.
That tanky thing.
Yep, that tanky thing, as we see more and more of.
Speaking of tanks, could you do me a favor, Trevor?
Yes.
I'm fairly naive about the world. But what I don't understand is why would 2 wet noodles fight one another?
So you come from a very cold place in the UK, right?
Yes.
But everywhere else where it's warm, whenever people go swimming, and you have a noodle in a swimming pool, you hit people with it, but nobody dies. That's not going to be the case in the bottom because Hustlin is looking for Hans Summer. Soul Flare comes out, teleport from Alfari behind. Flaxish is channeling as well. I can't quite see where he's coming though. Nobody goes down. Flash away from the Dazzle. There's a little bit of education and a team fight for you, Vedius.
So Alfari bringing his noodles down into the bottom lane. Wasn't quite able to set anything up though. Now they do have push priority down in the bottom lane, so they could look to try and force this tower. Nice response from Kakao to move up to the top lane so that there's not that much pressure. But Misfits actually looking very aggressive.
They are indeed. I didn't see if Flaxish's teleport was interrupted or if he cancelled it. Either way, Memento's coming in from behind. There's no Crystal Arrow available, but the Cosmic Radiance gets dropped down. Misfits buy some time. Knight's looking for Unsummer and he's found him. Dashed in. Chrono Break needed to survive, but doesn't get the damage portion. Power of Evil's unleashed his power. Doesn't find a kill. Flash from Ignar, but nobody else followed up. Need to tell your teammates. A little bit of a miscommunication there, something we've not seen a lot of. Misfits looking at the tower. Can they get the first tower gold before Giants? And yes, they can. Flaxish on that Nautilus, not going to have a very fast tower kill. Oh, wow, that's miles away. So Misfits come away with the lead.
I'd actually really like our replay guys to bring that back up because even though nobody ended up going down, there are a lot of small intricacies that we really need to highlight. And the most interesting thing about that was the fact that Knight went in with the teleport while the rest of Giants were disengaging. It felt like the communication was there to allow it to happen, but it was dissuaded by the fact that Power of Evil was in the river and he had control. So what Giants ideally would have wanted is a three-way collapse. So you're going to see it now, right? This is how things set up. So you have the Kazakhs coming in through the river, the teleport coming in from the Echo. And then you have the Syndra coming in from the flank. Memento gets dissuaded. He's scared of the Syndra, so he tries to disengage. The Cosmic Radiance buys enough time that Hansama can peel away and reposition. And this results in Knight being forced to flash away. And it was all thanks to the really good response from Power of Evil, as well as the smart ultimate from Ignar, holding it till just the right time that enables the 5-man unit of Misfits to take down the first turret of the game for the third game in a row.
Yeah, once again, it is in the dual lane with Hiku and Hustler. This time, however, Giants were a little bit more eager to respond. Unfortunately, they couldn't make anything stick. So that means Giants are down 1,500 gold. Ignar's roaming once again. It's good to see Ignar's kept up his style and his level of play from EUCS. You know, moving up to the bigger stage, it should be important to note that it is against one of the teams who are, you know, considered to be on the weaker side in Group A. So I want to see exactly how both of these teams continue to grow, because Giants, they've traded blow for blow where the fights have broken out.
They certainly have, and when we look at these two young teams, in a sense, the thing that I'm impressed about is the fact that we talked about mental fortitude earlier. Misfits, they've done a great job of what should have been a devastating early game, maintaining their composure, not taking too many risky moves, and now they've clawed themselves a gold lead.
It's really important to note as well, like so early in the game, nothing else was given up. You know, yes, there were double buffs to Flaxish, but the moment they timed, Alfari ran away, pulled a 20 CS lead. At times. Kakao has farmed himself up a 20 CS lead, and yes, while Power of Evil wasn't able to dominate the Echo, also maintaining relevance and staying equal. Knight throws out the parallel convergence, is going to be able to stun up Kakao. It's a fight over blue buff. Power of Evil yells, "Mine!" Yanks it backwards, and now Flaxish flashes over the wall, locks down Ignar temporarily. Cosmic Radiance will buy some time. That's a 3-man invulnerability. Knight is now forced to phase dive away to safety, and nobody goes down. I don't even think the blue buff was actually killed during that engage. But Giants, they want the tower.
Yep, the priority is that top lane tower for Giants. They've sent all 5 members up there. But look at Alfari immediately moving around to the mid. Look at the positioning of Misfits having control over the river, making it difficult for the rest of Giants to come and defend this turret. And Misfits may very well be able to respond with this mid lane objective.
They absolutely can. A little bit of support coming in from Misfits towards the river. Power of Evil is positioned. That's a stun! That's a 3-man stun! 2-man stun! EQ gets chunked down. Flashes to safety. Exhaust is on Memento, and the chains of corruption are spreading. Knight becomes the target. Chrono Break is available. Where's the Ghost? And no one's squishy, so Knight doesn't pull the trigger. And EQ manages to survive by the skin of his teeth.
But still a big advantage gain for Misfits. They get the summoner spells out from Hiku. They move towards the mid lane and they're looking to take this turret down. Notice that Memento, he's already been forced back.
Yeah, there's no minions to work with though. Misfits unable to kill it on this wave, waiting for support. Flaxish and Hustlin, 2 men against 5, make that 4 as Kakao is leaving lane. And it looks like Misfits are gonna back away. They'll take the tower another time.
Interesting that they decided to not commit to that. I think they were a little bit afraid of the possible TP coming in from Knight, and they realized that with everyone returning back with full health, as well as just picking up a couple of items, they didn't want to take the risk. But now Giants are actually in a good position to take away this trade.
Very important to see how impactful that Taric ultimate has been. You know, if Giants are relying on burst damage and some resets from Kha'Zix and Echo, allowing Memento to jump around, Cosmic's Radiance is going to be a game changer.
And it already has been. You know, as you rightly said, it's had such a big impact. I've been very pleasantly surprised by how well Ignar has been utilizing the turret. And while they definitely struggled during the laning phase, they did get pushed underneath their turret a lot. The fact that they made that early map movement to the bottom and they took that early tower has now mitigated a lot of the strengths of Karma. And now we're going to see later into the game that she is this squishy, somewhat not useless support, but in terms of the utility that she provides, she pales in comparison to what Taric can do.
Yeah, especially when you look at the bigger picture of team fight. So Misfits in a good spot. 16 minutes in, they've come back from that 3-kill deficit. They've got a gold lead, but they have lost the dragon. So got to remember that. Giants had pretty good dragon control in game 1 of the series.
And that's what we need to backtrack to and criticize the Misfits, because they tunneled a little bit too much on that mid lane turret. They chunked out a lot of the Giants members, and you were identifying it. It was only Hustler, it was only Flaxish that was defending that turret. Misfits could have moved to that dragon, could have taken that objective, and I felt like that because they didn't have, they were so focused on taking that one objective that they didn't open their minds to the possibilities of what else can we take, what more is there on the map, and it ends up costing them overall.
Yeah, it does indeed. Mountain Drake goes the way of Giants. We saw Flaxish just, you know, pushing that top wave out, getting it past the river. He's played a very heavy split push style of game this series, and now he's on a much more team fight oriented champion. So I want to see how quickly he teleports. You know, the very early level 1, level 2 mid lane fights, he was there very quickly. The moment there was a chance, teleport will become available fairly soon. It's around 20 seconds. We'll need to see if he can find an opportunity to combo with Knight, get on the back line and get through Taric.
And this is what I'm happy about with regards to the Giants lineup, because you and I at the start said we want to see more early game from Memento.
Yeah.
We want to see what Flaxish can do as a team. And hang on, we have a TP coming in mid.
Oh, Ash Arrow onto Memento. He's just locked up for days. Power of Evil gets a kill with the ultimate, but what will it cost him? Cosmic Radiance will give an invulnerability to a few. Knight runs away with the Chrono Break. Flaxish is tanking up 5 members of Misfits, but they're split. Hiku's running out of mana. 5 members of Misfits chasing down Flaxish. He's stunned by Scatter the Weak, and he's killed by Power of Evil.
Really good dive coming out from the side of Misfits, and poor positioning for the side of Hiku. He asked for Misfits to dive him, and they delivered. Very clean kill, and they should be able to take a second turret off the back of this.
Yeah, 5 members in the mid lane. EQ can't even spam more than 1 skill shot. Doesn't even clear the wave. 2 towers for Misfits, and they pull even further ahead.
And look at Power of Evil. Initially at the start, he was struggling after that 1 for 3 in favor of Giants, but now he has made his way back. And off the cuff, arrow coming out from Handsummer. Oh, beautiful, lands onto Memento. I said it was Hiku, my apologies. Memento was the one that got shut down, and that was honestly just a really clean setup.
And it was a double stun from Power of Evil as well.
Kakao as well.
This is just now, this is nasty, you know? 5 members, they've split Giants, and they just run them down.
Yeah, really clean play coming out from the side of Misfit. And it was just that combo of Power of Evil landing the double stun into the arrow onto just the right tie. I think they would have been happy if that hit Hustlin too. But yeah, you can see the relief. Very clean dive. And now that early deficit, Misfits in breakfast.
Yeah, it's great to see the coaching staff backstage. Reactions. Daku, of course, Power of Evil.
Oh.
It's shut down by Memento.
Oops.
Yeah, he is able to run him down even with the ultimate. The stun didn't connect. So I think if the stun had connected, may have been a different story.
But still, why was Power of Evil there with no flash anyway? He had no team to support him. You already had good vision control around the top half of your map. You should have been aware that members of Giants were missing, and you should have responded accordingly.
But yes, Power of Evil's a player we've not talked a lot about. Kakao and Ignar trying to defend this tower. Support coming in from Flaxish. Power of Evil, of course, I think question marks around his champion pool was one of the big stories of last year. And now we've hit a meta with way more viable champions. I want to see how it impacts him. Dazzle's going to stun out Flaxish, but not going to be enough to stop the tower, and Giants at least get one back. Power of Evil's Syndra's been pretty good, you know?
Well, it has been in the sense that he has good target focus, he lands the stun, and mechanically, he has been a strong Syndra. But some of his decision-making has been very questionable. Like in game 1, many times he flashed onto a target, fully aware that there was a double exhaust. He didn't respect it, he just blindly did it because he realized, target is stunned, I can kill target, oh oops, they have an exhaust. And right here, Power of Evil, he even had vision.
Yeah.
So I think that was a very greedy play where he thought he could catch Memento out because he believed that thanks to the control ward, that he wasn't being spotted out and could get a pick. So okay, I can forgive him a little bit, but at the same time, that was just oversight with the fact that you can't see that happen.
No, definitely not. Can Giants see a dive? Heard a ghost being thrown down by Power of Evil. He's not going to find a target. Teleport is available for Flaxish. He's down in the bottom wave, dealing with Alfari at the moment. But there's no minions, so going to hold on to it now. It's still a 3,000 gold difference. We've gone over 21 minutes, and yeah, Power of Evil had difficulty against the double exhausts. But after going up against a mid laner who was able to pick up an early kill, 3, 2, and 0, got that Morello Nomicon, got the ability. Looking comfortable this game, knowing that Ignor's got his back if anything does go wrong.
Yep, and he certainly did in the previous fight after Power of Evil had to flash relatively early given the flank from Knight, and he was there to provide that set of immunity to draw out the fight. Now, Misfits, they applied pressure top, they drew Giants up to the top half of the map. Giants had no vision control around the bottom half of their jungle, so they felt that it was risky to try and contest that dragon. Ends up giving it away for free, so now Misfits, they get themselves, I believe, their first dragon of the game.
Yeah, they grab their Ocean Drake, and I'm not comparing apples for apples with this stat, Vedius, but our stats team just informed me that Power of Evil has dealt 3 times the amount of damage to champions as Knight. Now again, it is a Syndra versus an Echo, you know, all-in assassin type versus slightly more pokey type.
Yeah, like,
but it's still a sizable difference.
It is. It certainly is. Personally, I would never use apples as a comparison, but hey, to each their own. Why not blowing death balls? I feel like that's a large contributor as to why.
They absolutely are.
Yeah.
And all 3 of Misfits' kills are concentrated on Power of Evil, so another reason why stats are so high. We've not talked about the wet noodlers for a while. 198 to 167, 30 CS difference. And Flaxish on this Nautilus, I'm waiting for him to get involved. I've not seen a player an opportunity where really it could be a game changer with the Nautilus, with the hooks, with the mine.
The thing is, I would highly encourage any aspiring top laner to just watch Alfari play, because even on these tanks, it's difficult to properly put into words how much pressure he can exert on champions that, in theory, shouldn't be able to exert that kind of pressure. Now, Maokai, he's never been a weak top laner, but the way Alfari plays it is just so impressive and enjoyable to watch. But look at the flank TP coming in from Knight.
All right, let's see if this is any good. I actually think it's Flaxish coming in from behind.
Oh,
the interrupt from Power of Evil. Cosmic Radiance is going to buy some time, catches all 3 members of Misfits. Ashara from Hansama is available. Is it going to get fired? It's coming from downtown, but the corner break is going to get dodged. Hustlin is stunned up for days. Flaxish and Hiku fighting from the back line. Hustlin's already down. Hansama's found Hiku. Baron not going to get enlisted. I thought he was about to attack. Knight and Memento running for their lives. It's a double kill for Power of Evil. Flaxish, Memento running for their lives. Giants are about to get aced. It is just a matter of time. Flaxish running through the jungle. Memento gets tagged up. Alfari, sapling toss. Will it find a target? No, because the tower will. And now all of a sudden, Memento and Cacao rather, and Ignar are running down Flaxish.
And I feel like Misfits can just move straight towards the Baron right now. They still have 4 members alive. Only Flaxish is available. Hustlin is too far away for them to contest it, but that Baron is going down fairly slowly.
It is taking its time. Hansama's not there, remember. He did get taken out at the end of the fight. Unburrow after the tunnel. Flaxish is going to try use that dredge line to safety, and Knight is coming in. Has to cancel a TP. Do not want to jump into 4.
I like the fact that all members of Misfits just stopped and stood around it and said, okay, if you want to do this, we'll go. But he did not take it. is going to bait out that second teleport from Giants, which is going to allow Misfits a little bit more room to play around the map, which I do quite like. But now we have to factor in what Misfits have actually gained off the back of that. Yes, they got a lot of kills. Yes, they've extended their gold lead just a little bit. But in terms of control, it actually hasn't varied that much. And you can see this actual setup is started by Giants. Flaxish comes in from the flank. Beautiful interrupt from Power of Evil. I don't even think he had vision of that, and he still is able to interrupt it. Alfari then comes in. Look at Hikyu on the backline. He actually becomes completely ignored, and he's not putting any damage out of the back of this fight. Huston's the one that takes the arrow.
Knight totally sold him out with the chrono break.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate for Huston. Now watch this 1v1. You have to praise Hikyu for this, because in a 2 versus 1, he's still able to get a kill. He had a really good flash to avoid the stun, really good micromanagement, but unfortunately none of that really matters when overall the rest of your team is falling.
I think that is important to note, because Hikyu is a guy we started criticizing at the beginning of the game. How Hikyu and Huston were just kind of being run over in that bottom lane. But some good mechanical prowess in that team fight allows a lot of damage to be dealt. And at the end of the day, it's Misfits that just extend that lead. They push the gold lead further. And we're back to sort of the Baron game. The flawed Baron game defined game number 1, which allowed Giants back into it. Game 2, it was the game-winning play for Misfits. And now there's a tower and some deep vision. Feels like a lot safer this time around.
And taking down this tower will make positioning around the Baron a lot easier, because now the top half of the map really has opened up for Misfits. Giants did a good job of getting push priority in the mid. They have a bit of a wave building up in the bottom lane as well, which Misfits do have to go and deal with, but they still have that tower available to them, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. They need to stop extending their vision further into the top half of Giants' jungle, because this is where the Baron really becomes important. 26 minutes into the game, just have a look at some of the items that have been completed. Big spikes for the side of Misfits, and this is where they want to try and force these fights.
Yeah, and comparing that to Giants, there's not a lot of tankiness down the line. Black Cleaver, Warrior Enchant, Kha'Zix, Lichbane Protobelt, you know, Essence Reaver Hurricane. If Power of Evil gets a stun and his ultimate onto basically any of those characters, I think they're gone. So
except for Flaxish.
No room for error on 4 out of 5 members of the Giants squad.
Yeah.
Look, if Power of Evil is targeting Flaxish with his ultimate, there's a bigger mistake to talk about.
Yes, there certainly is. It certainly is. So, prioritizing now the next objective. I'm having a look at that Mountain Drake that's coming up in a couple seconds.
What else do Giants need to get back into this, right? Because they tried the teleport team fights and got thwarted. The impact of Ignor's Taric, once again, game-changing. Memento goes invisible. With the Void Assault, there was no unleashed power available. But maybe it's enough damage to allow a safe mountain.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, that right there, you have to praise the power of Merc Trends. If you as a jungler want to be aggressive and you think, I should get Ionian Boots, I should get Berserker's Greaves, do not do it if you're going up against someone like a Syndra or an Ashe, where the pick potential is phenomenal, because that was a close-range Ashe arrow, which means that the stun duration was not as long, and the fact that he had his Merc Treads reduced that stun even further. So just good itemization choice coming out from Memento enables him to get away with that, but it doesn't stop them from taking down the Drake.
It doesn't, because it was the pressure play, right? It released some focus from Giants and allowed Misfits to get the Mountain Drake, complement the Ocean. We'll see one more Ocean before Elder Drake spawns. All of the deep vision that Misfits pushed forward is being cleared out. As you can see, the control wards being killed by Memento.
The problem... Sorry to cut you off there, but the problem with this play in particular is the fact that, okay, as Giants, you've just moved in, you've just cleared all this vision out, but now you're actually not in a position to defend it, because Knight is just about to go back. Yes, he has his teleport, but look, Ignor can just walk in and just be like, okay, all your base belong to us.
and this is where the context of like the third game in a best-of series is now very good, because we can evaluate and judge how the teams have progressed. Alfari, plus 40 CS, Flaxish on a tank, frontliner, still playing like a split pusher. You know, they've tried to make a fight happen a couple times, but Giants either picking the wrong fights or unable to do so. Matter of perception, I feel. And now for Misfits, outer towers are down. It's only those inner turrets in the top and bottom lane. Vision still around Baron. And they have another option. Pick with Syndra, pick with Ashe. Lock somebody down and just blow them up.
Certainly do. The big factor they have to take into consideration is Knight, largely because he has the teleport. He's working towards that Zhonya's. Once it's completed, he will be a big threat for, in terms of the side lane pressure, because who on Misfits can go and deal with it? Sure, you could put the Maokai there to deal with him, but you won't then be able to have anyone to deal with Flaxish. And you're splitting up the Misfits lineup, which is not what they want to do. They want to stay at the very least as a 4-man unit and have Alfari join to have this powerful teamfight comp that they drafted.
Well, Misfits have been doing that very, very well. Enchanted Crystal Arrow, waiting to see if it gets fired. Flash is available for the entirety of Giants. So there is some possibility of dodging. Deathcap was picked up by Power of Evil, and the arrow goes a little wide. Actually, it may have just caught Memento on the end, but there was nobody else nearby. And Alfari had run up. So just a slightly awkward phase while Misfits are testing the waters in different areas before they commit to an objective. You know, they don't want to make a mistake, throw away the gold lead, playing it, honestly, just a little bit safe.
They were looking for a pick in the top side of the map, but they were sitting in a position that made it very difficult. They hadn't quite extended their vision deep enough to secure the pick, and now they're just waiting for the Ash Arrow to come back up, because there's a big minion wave pushing in the bottom. Hansama wants to go get his red buff. Syndra wants to go and get a blue buff. Alfari needs to go and clear out this wave in the bottom lane because they don't want to give this free global gold over to Giants. And so that play could have suddenly snowballed into a Baron and potentially the game in one direction or another. But now we're also starting to see the pressure that Knight can exert over Power of Evil in this side lane.
Scats of the Week just knocks him back. No stun though. Power of Evil doesn't really want to throw down that ultimate because Knight can just trade with his own. A little bit of pressure coming up. Chrono Break gets the damage onto Power of Evil. Unleashed Power this time finds the stun. Exhaust as well. Knight flashes over the wall. The Ash Arrow goes a little bit wide. Kill credit. Volley tags onto Knight. And Hansama's the one that secures it. 5 versus 4 for a little while. Remember, Knight has a teleport if he wants to join in.
We have to backtrack to game 1 when Knight did exactly the same error. No vision on that side of the map. Look at the control wards coming out from Misfits. Look at the vision that Giants had, and Knight still plays too aggressively, too cocky, gets punished for it, and now Misfits make their way to the Baron.
25 seconds before Knight is alive. 4 members of Giants making their way up. Memento's got a lot of damage, jumps into the pit, does it again! That's a Baron steal for Memento!
Memento gets a second steal in this series. The hero that Giants need once again. And unbelievable, Giants are still in this game.
It is official. Giants junglers are all called El Bandito because this team, this organization has a history of junglers that steal Barons in big moments.
Oh my word, I cannot believe that Memento does it again. Why not just stop? You know that he's coming into the pit. Why run the risk of the 50-50? That is how you steal with a Kha'Zix, because you have the Q, you have the smite. The combination of the two is so much burst damage, but now we see the arrow on the Flaxish.
Yeah, not really the guy you wanted to hit though. Hansama and Misfits arrows have been optimistic for the last few minutes. And this now throws a wrench in the engine. Here's a replay on just how Memento jumped in to pick it up.
Oh, okay, so it was actually also in combination with the empowered Q coming out from Hustlin. So that brought it down to 1200. You also add on to the Q, that brings it down to 800. Then you have the smite from Memento to finish it off. So honestly, good coordination there between Memento and Hustlin to get away the steal. But Misfits should have just stopped, turned, and then gone back to the Baron. That's just the reality that we're in. That's not gonna... Oh, okay, fair, they got it.
Got enough damage, there's a lot of AP on that Syndra.
Oh, he Q. I don't know why you were there, but Enchanted Crystal Arrow not up. That could have been very dangerous for EQ.
Right,
but
so
look at Knight again. No vision.
Right, Verius, summarize what this means. Giants, they're still down 5,000 gold. They've got Baron and a couple members. They're pushing out multiple waves, and they have deep vision. Is it enough to claw back the hole they find themselves in?
Well, I mean, it certainly could be. The big thing now is you're actually buying a lot of time for Knight to get even more items and be that split push threat. Notice that he has completed the arrow.
Wow, very quick QSS. Hiku's running for his life. Redemption comes down. Hiku gets healed ever so slightly. Stunned once again. There's so many members of Misfits on him, though. And Alfari picks up the kill with that vengeful Maelstrom. Where is the rest of Misfits? Knight is on the turret in the top lane. He's got a Lich Bane hammering away. Memento's coming to help. We may have a base race on our hands. Flaxish is in the bottom lane. Takes down the tower, empowered recall available to him. But the inhibitor in the middle lane is now under pressure. Misfits with 5. They're knocking away on the inhibitor. It's down. 25 seconds before he queues up. Knight is starting to recall. Misfits putting pressure onto the Nexus turret. The first turret's going to fall. They've got minions coming up. Flaxish gets stunned and so does Memento. Misfits take one more before they back away. 10 seconds for HeQ. And Knight holds onto the teleport. There are a lot of wards if Flaxish and Knight wanted to fight.
Zero hesitation from Misfits. They knew exactly what they wanted to do, and that was end the game. Giants were the ones that had to decide, do we stop or do we commit? And now Misfits are committing.
Commit to Memento. He gets caught by the Ash Arrow. Parallel Convergence buys a lot of time, but the Cosmic Radiance is the game changer. Chrono Break for Knight. Gets knocked up by the Unburrow. Trying to find Hans Summer. Summon a heal is going to save his life. And now HeQ. He respawns simply to get re-killed. No, he's escaped with his life. It's a peel, a turn, a burn for Hustlin. And Flaxish buys some time. 3 more members of Giants are down. It's up to Flaxish and HeQ to do the impossible. 2 on 5 against Misfits.
Misfits are just waiting for the minion wave. Kakao has just gone back to base and is coming back with the support that his team needs to end this game and take the series.
5 members of Misfits forward. Ignore looks for the dazzled stun. Will not find it. Misfits turn their attention to the Nexus. They're ignoring the champions. And Misfits defeat Giants. Relieved faces on the side of Misfits. They win the series 2-1. It was hard fought, and there's a lot of learnings.
Oh yeah. I feel like the term young team is definitely appropriate.
For both squads today on the Rift.
But when you think back, this is kind of where Kakao was when he initially joined the KT Arrows. He was put in charge of a team that was full of young players, and he nurtured them and led them to a summer championship. Could he potentially do the same here? I feel like there's a lot of potential.
There's a lot of potential. It's still very early days.
Very early. But it's nice to think about.
Misfits had to dig very deep against Giants. We saw some of the good things, some of the bad things about the squads. What I do like from Misfits overall is their willingness to make plays. Tower dives, whether they went right or wrong, the fact that they were happening made me happy. A lot of pressure around towers and pushing for Baron plays. Now it's about refining those things and making them better.
I really enjoyed the series. I thought we saw a lot of really good League of Legends. I thought we saw a lot of confusing League of Legends. But at the same time, we're also looking at 2 teams that have a very long split ahead of them, a lot of room for growth, and I feel like that we saw very positive aspects from both. But the big thing that stood out for me is Misfits definitely came in as the stronger team. They had a very dominant early game consistently. Other than that, debatable. 1 for 3 at the start. They maintained their composure, and they were still able to draw it back out and claw themselves the lead.
It was so early into the game that, yes, it gave some advantages to Flaxish, for example, but with the double buffs and some kills to Memento, it didn't go anywhere else, right? Memento started that game 2-0-1. He ended the game 2-4-2. You know, 1 more assist to his tally on that Kha'Zix, despite the full damage build. One thing that I also want to mention that we didn't touch on right at the beginning of the day, Misfits, one of the few teams that did a huge group huddle just before their very first game. You know, we caught it before game 1 of the series. Game 1 went to 50 minutes, and truthfully, Misfits threw that game. You know, they were in control. They did have the lead, and they gave Giants an opportunity.
I would, in part, also say that that's related to the comp that they had in game 1, because they had the Jhin. The tank killing wasn't very good against 3 annoying tanks on the front line. And honestly, I think that credit is due to Giants building a good draft. In part, we have to talk back to the introduction of Sonsar as assistant coach, helping with the draft. This was something that he was praised for on the team, being that strategic mind, being very good during the pick and ban phase. And honestly, I feel like that in terms of the pick and ban, Giants have been fairly solid. They haven't built bad compositions. I just think that
interesting compositions.
It was just that the execution has been a big flaw. Like, you know, especially down the bottom lane, like Memento hasn't been investing very much time there.
No.
They've been losing that first turret in every single game. The early game definitely needs some work for Giants.
I mean, we're gonna look at it. I think, you know, in terms of the players on Giants who had moments that were pretty good. You know, Memento with his Baron steals and his late game team fights. Knight and Flaxish, I actually thought came away from this looking pretty good. I'd like to see all three of them doing a little more early game. And now my focus is going to be on Hiku and Haslin, how they develop. You know, Hiku coming over from, you know, the Turkish leagues and Haslin never really shining on the teams that he's played with in the past. But where do they develop? Where do they grow? You know, they still had good moments. This was a hard-fought series. You know, this was not a clean win. These were games that Giants could have won if they'd played a few things just a little bit better.
And I'd like to see a little bit more development from Flaxish, as you were mentioning. Like this,
Yeah.
this guy, we saw a lot of his really powerful split pushing. And game one on the Alawi, he was really impressive. His understanding of, okay, I've fallen a little bit behind during the laning phase, but I knew I would outscale. And he was just drawing so much pressure, making so many great plays. 1 versus 4, tower dive, still gets a kill. Like, this guy definitely has some skill there. It just needs a little bit more fleshing out. It just needs a little bit more refinement. Like, the cannon wasn't quite as impressive, didn't enjoy it as much.
Yes.
But there's definitely room there to play around. And it's nice to know that Giants, perhaps they don't have to put all the emphasis on Knight. Like, I was still impressed with Hiku.
There are options elsewhere in the squad that they can focus on and that they can look at. We will be heading over to an interview with Paraviv and Alfari shortly, just as soon as I hear the guys are set up on stage. And, you know, for Misfits, Alfari showed up. You know, he looked good. He looked impressive, as expected. Hans Summer on the utility champions looked good, looked impressive. And I think, unfortunately, more questions need to be asked instead of having some of those questions answered, you know. Kakao as well, great early game, questionable mid-game at times. What was your read on Misfits' expectations versus now reality?
So I think that actually Misfits came in better than I was originally expecting, because I thought that there'd be a lot of, in a sense, communication issues, because I knew, I was pretty confident that Kakao would come in as a leader. I felt like that would be his role on the team. And when you pair him up with Ignar, I felt like that this two in combo would actually be this really strong leading force that would allow Misfits to succeed. And I think we saw that very early on in a very young team.
We did indeed, and I like the proactive plays. We're going to be able to find out a little bit more from 2 of the Misfits members. Over to the analyst desk to talk to Paravival and Alfari.
Thank you very much, guys. Indeed, Paravival and Alfari after their first series win here in the LCS over Giants. And I'd like to start off by asking you...
Hold on. Before we go any further, there's one thing I want to ask about in that final game. There's a lot of things I want to talk to your team about. But first, I want to pull up a replay here, because while that final game did end very well for you guys, it did not start so good. So if we could take a chance to look at that first tower dive.
It's going to come off in just a second.
It's going to come up. There it is. So what were you guys thinking here, and what exactly went wrong?
Well, so Alfari said that he has the first roam, so he was starting to roam to mid lane. Kakao, we were talking about tower diving him maybe, and I pushed in mid lane, but then I think we just kind of miscommunicated to each other a little bit. Alfari wanted to dive, Kakao didn't want to dive, and for me it was like I just followed up, I guess, a little bit, and then it was like not on the same page, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was maybe a little bit over-enthusiastic by me, but I saw
it was a fault from I think everyone, because we were not on the same page at all, so we just all suicided kind of.
I'd like to apologize on behalf of my colleague for the first time you guys joined on the desk and immediately smashed you guys, but I like that you said, I was maybe a bit over-enthusiastic. I had the impression that you felt more comfortable as the series was going. I know maybe that Ilawi matchup in the first one and the way she scaled was a bit of a curveball, but you seem to get more confident as the games advance. Is that correct?
Well, first game was, we didn't really know what to expect from their top laner particularly. Like, the Alawi pick was definitely not expected, so after that I don't think there was too much to be worried about. So, like, he didn't really pull out anything else that was making me not confident, so yeah, I guess I got more confident.
Yeah, it seemed in general. What was the communication like in the team and what was said? Because it seemed like there was a very big difference between game 1, where you guys had the lead early, but you couldn't transition it to a win, and then game 2 and 3, where you guys just pulled the trigger so handily.
I think it's just because we were the first time as a team on stage, like with the addition of me and Kakao. So I felt like we were playing too scared in the first game. We had the lead. I think we could have closed out the game, but we just we just were too scared. We had a lot of times the Baron vision, but we didn't transform it or use it correctly. So we nearly just started Baron, then we're like, oh guys, how do we engage now? I think it was just like a little bit, how to say, first game, first time LCS in a long time. So I think we picked it up really good in the second and third game.
It did look like it improved over the course of the series. Now, I'm curious, you guys are both solo laners. How has the new 10-ban system affected your champion pools individually? Do you feel like there's more pressure for you guys to pick up new champions now, or is it still kind of the same as it used to be in Season 6?
I feel like for blind picks, there's maybe less options because enemies can just ban other champions or just have lots of options for counter picks now, particularly. But I feel for counter picks, there's actually loads of options now. Which you saw, in this series, they were always saving last pick for top lane, for counter picking, particularly one solo lane. But I don't know how that is for mid lane, but yeah, for top lane, I don't think there's too many blind picks that you can go because of the bans, but I think there's also counter picks now.
I think the only thing that really changed is that on red side you can pick in the last rotation, in the first rotation mid lane as last one, and then just target ban mid lane, and you get sometimes a really, really good matchup since you ban all the counter picks of mid lane, and I think that's probably one of the possibilities you can do in the 10-ban system.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't see that as much. You picked Syndra in all of your games, and you guys priority picked it. Do you feel like she's still top tier enough after the changes to the balls that you should pick her every time as a first pick, or is that more comfort for you?
That was actually funny since in the second game we wanted to pick Syndra early, but there was some communication issues in Cherry section and Kakao.
Yeah, we actually picked one
Kakao
champion.
was randomly picking Kha'Zix because
by
accident, by accident, since I think he doesn't find the champions fast enough since only 30 seconds. So, but then we realized that Knight doesn't prioritize Syndra at all. He didn't pick it up, and they banned it in the end as well. So we just decided that third game we don't need to pick it that early, and I think it worked out for us really good.
That's good. He threw you a curveball, and you guys adapted as a team. Really nice to know. We also see you guys
mind games
prioritizing the thrash there for Ignar. Maybe also a bit of comfort level for him in game one, and he is our player of the series. Do you guys agree with that? I mean, you're not going to say that he played bad, of course, but how did you feel he fit in for his first pro game here on the ULCS stage?
Yeah, Ignar played well.
Yeah.
He's deserves it, I guess. I can't say without having looked at all the bot lane trades, but I think they won bot, so.
I think especially the second game when he played Malzahar, he played really, really good. He was always calling for the targets, for the engages. I think he played really, really good engage supports. On first game, it was a little bit, how to say, hard for him since he played against Nautilus, but I think he played really good the whole series.
Yeah, and he's our player of the series. As we go, maybe a quick question about your group in general. A lot of people are saying, well, G2 is very strong, Fnatic is very strong. Where does Misfits land for you guys?
I think Gamers 2 are pretty clearly the favorites at the moment. And I think after that, I think us and Fnatic are both probably, just below Gamers 2 perhaps. And then I suppose Roccat and Giants will both be, maybe struggling, but I think they can both take games as well.
All right, you guys have your eye on the number 2 in that group already. Well, thank
number
you
one,
guys.
yeah.
Or number 1, of course.
Eye on number 1. They just currently rank themselves
currently
number
ranking
2.
second. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us as well on PoE. You're going to stick around to cover the next series for us, which is Vitality taking on the Unicorns of Love. We'll be back right after the break with that second best of 3.
Of Misfits chasing down Flaxfish. He's stunned by Scatter the Weak, and he's killed by Power of Evil. Hustler's already down. Summer's found EQ. Baron's not going to get enlisted. I thought he was about to attack. Knights and Memento ready for their lives. It's great to see the coaching staff backstage making their way up. Memento's got a lot of damage. Jumps into the pit. Does it again! That's a Baron steal for Memento. Misfits turn their attention to the Nexus. They're ignoring the champions, and Misfits defeat Giants.